This interview is being conducted for the Patterton WWII Prisoner of War Camp and its Neighbours project. My name is Jessie Jolliffe and the respondent is
Norma Wilson.
This is the date, the 8th of June, and the interview is taking place at Norma's house. Thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed for this project. What is your year of birth?
I was born in 1948.
And for the record, what is your connection to the Patterton WWII camp?
My mother and stepfather resided in two of the tied cottages.
Whereabouts were the cottages and location to the camp?
Well, they were in the grounds of the Patterton farm opposite the Patterton railway station.
And you brought up there?
No. My parents married in 42 and they moved down to Glen.
And did your dad actually work in the camp?
He was from Newcastle area and he was sent up here, so I don't quite know what year. The fact he got married in 42, it must have been a short courtship, I think. So he was sent up with whoever the squadron were, and that's how they met. Because Mum blamed her mother. It's her fault, because Granny invited him home for a cup of tea, and that's how they met. My husband thought my father was in the, I think it's the artillery, because he said he had there was a cord to his pocket coming from there, an extra, and he seemed to think it was artillery. And then he was sent down to, here I go, where the ammunition place in London. What's it called? I know it well and I can't remember the name. Arsenal place in London. So he must have been backwards and forwards. And as far as I know, after the war, he then got a job in the print works. But I don't quite know what he did in the camp. And I don't know how Granny got to meet him. And why was it only... Maybe she asked other soldiers home, I don't know. But that one particular soldier, maybe she felt sorry for him. I don't know. I mean, all these folk are dead, I can't ask them. There's a lot of questions now I wish I'd asked. You know, some of the aunts. It's all a mystery.
Do you know what your mum did during the war?
Oh, she was an errand. She was in a munitions factory at one point, and she was only 16. She told lies about her age. Granny worked munitions and Mum finished up being the boss over her. So she actually didn't work on the floor, she worked in the office, I think. See, you only get snippets of them. They don't sit down and talk. Stepfather never said one word about anything.
So when did your mum come to Patterton, Newton Mount?
Well, as it was then, farming people, tied cottages. So that family, my grandfather seemingly died very young. So there was was it 5 children? So Granny would be working on the farm. The grandfather did, until he died, and he was youngish, I don't know what age. So Mum was there, she was a teenager because of the incident. She was going to throw Jessie off the train. And Granny's family were nearly evicted because of it, nearly. And Mum told me this, she thought it was funny, because that was her twisted humour. She would tell me these incidents where she'd cause havoc. So, whatever, I presume in early teens. But then she married in 42, so that's when she left. But I don't know when Granny left, because Granny then went on to other places to the same thing, maybe a housekeeper, so she could keep the family together. But it's all very complex. My life story is actually more complex. Mum was actually adopted, and it turned out, so she was the first child. There was no children. She was the first one, and then Granny went on and had these other children. The Granny was a big lady. She was 6'2" and 18 stone. My actual natural grandmother is something like my shape, and Mum was kind of slight built as well. So people who would meet the sisters and the brother, one brother died young with leukemia, and they'd meet them and they would just automatically say, "Oh, you don't look alike." And the sisters were so protective. They looked like fizz. They were not amused, but they didn't say anything. But it turned out Mum wasn't legally adopted. We didn't know till she died. It was still her maiden name on our original name on her birth certificate. In the 1920s, the 20s, she was born. Her natural mother and father were professionals. They already had a daughter of 10 who they put into boarding school. And when Mum was born, don't want my career, the mother, I don't want my career. An advert in the paper. And when Mum found out and she asked for the birth certificate so she could put the marriage lines in, she was only 18, when she saw it and she hunted my grandmother down and she found her. The grandmother didn't like her, didn't want to know her, but we had this funny relationship. She'd visit, but we weren't allowed to let on we knew who she was. So there's all these cousins on my mother's side, and there's all these relatives on my father's side. So literally my sister and I are orphans. We'll get nobody. And then of course there's the stepfather's bit, and you know, he was a good father. And then Jeanette, who's his that's her proper uncle. So we just say we're cousins because it gets too complicated.
It's just wondering if there's any prisoners of war out in the countryside or working.
My mother made a comment that, now I'm presuming it was after she married, because she made a comment, she asked if the prisoners, the Italian prisoners, would be allowed out to come and paper her house, because they were renting a farmhouse at Crossleys Farm at Rookin Glen, and she asked if they would be allowed out to come and paper. And this was when they would be marched down to the print works at Spears Bridge. And then another thing they used to do when they were walking down the road, I'm presuming, I think she said it was Italian prisoners, they would cut up their army blankets and sew them and be waving them, wanting you to buy them. So I would presume it would be the barter system. I don't know, maybe it was for money so they could buy things in a little shop. I'm not sure. But they would wave the slippers hoping that people, whoever, would buy them off them. And that's really the only things I remember relating to the camp itself.
How were the other people's attitudes towards the prisoners like?
Well, I spoke to Marion McGee, as you know, you heard her, and George Falls. Seemingly at the Folk and Mearns village were told, keep away from there. And I'm thinking that Italian prisoners wouldn't be prisoners of war. I think it was because, remember when the war started, Britain got nervous of any foreign nationals living here, and I'm thinking that's why they were prisoners, not because they'd done anything wrong, it was just because they were living in Britain. Just by talking to different neighbours, and they just said they were warned, parents warned them to keep well away. I don't get that. Did they think the prisoners were going to attack them? Because they were under guard when they marched down the road. It's not like somebody was going to jump out and with a weapon. So the children on the whole just kept well away, and nobody asked questions, or it was like a secret society. I feel there's people down there and they're locked up. Don't go near.
Any memories about any prisoners of war growing food?
Well, I've got a kind of cousin, Jeanette, and she said she's got memories. She said he was an ex-German prisoner, and he seemed to have a piece of land adjoining Lambie's, and he was growing vegetables on it, and I think he lived in one of the Nissen huts. And she couldn't. She mentioned a name, but she couldn't quite remember. But it was an anglicised name. It wasn't a German name, but she said he was definitely a German. So that must have been after the war, late 40s, early 50s. I don't know what happened to him in the end. And she mentioned there was some old lady lived in one of the Nissen huts after the war, and Jeanette used to visit her. Other than that,
any memories you may have of the Polish resettlement corp at the camp?
not at the camp, only the ones that were moved up here eventually. Quite a few Polish men lived up here, but not at the actual camp.
Right.
I wasn't aware.
So did they actually live in Scotland? Did they live in
We had
the
a
village?
few just living round this area,
Right.
along the road, across the back, down the road, round, the Buccleuch. I kind of knew the grandson. And I think we had a cobbler when the little cottages were on the Barhead Road. There was a cobbler there, he was Polish. And they just integrated, accepted. And they worked up in, Janis and Adam, they worked up in Mearnskirk Hospital.
So they're able to find employment.
Seemed to be.
Okay, that's all my questions. Have I missed anything?
Don't think so.
And can I thank you very much for
That's
sharing your
all right.
memories with me today.
Sorry, that's all.
Oh, thank you.